a biscuits hat kind of day, everybody. It's a biscuits hat kind of day. Biscuits. All right. What do we got here? First 5 questions in the chat room belong to Ryan. Ryan, you did 2. I feel like I didn't. I didn't make a rule that you couldn't ask a bunch in a row. So it's Ryan, Kenneth, and Jason. And everybody else will be at the tail end of this bad boy. So let's dive right in. Like and subscribe as it says there on your screen. Anybody that's joining us after the fact, hopefully that'll be one of the first things you guys see. I try to trim off the beginning where it's just music in a background. So folks watching after the fact, they come in right for this thing. So, hi, let's do this thing. How likely is it that Braun returns in 2 weeks? Very unlikely. Currently in a bye. I have 3 IR slots, but I'm considering streaming his spot to gain an extra game or 2. I also have Jalen Duren. I would far sooner drop Jalen Duren just because, one of these 2 guys is a top 20 fantasy play, and the other is a maybe top, 90-ish, 80. I think LeBron is back in around 3 weeks, so March 20th. I guess it'd be, that'd be almost exactly 3 weeks from when the injury happened. I don't think he's back by, March 13th is the start of a week. Probably back around the start of the following week. And it'll also depend a little bit on how the Lakers look. If they can tread water a tad here for 8 to 10 games while he's out, this game tonight for the Lakers is enormous against the Thunder without Shea. If they trade water, he'll come back. If they play really well, he might take a little bit longer. If they play incredibly poorly and go 1-9 and they're out of the playoff picture, then he probably won't rush back, and that would be the end of it. So if you have Braun, pray for Lakers wins, and then I think you'll see him in about 3 weeks. Is Josh Richardson must roster in a 12-team points league? I'd likely drop Jalen Duren or maybe Kevin Love. I'm in a bye week, so I'm trying to stream early. All right, so you're setting things up for early next week. I'm going to say yes to Richardson in a 12-team points league. He's starting. He's playing starters minutes. He had some fouls in the last ball game, or it probably would have been a little bit better. I think his outlook is better than Kevin Love, who honestly, I'd be surprised if he kept that starting job in Miami for more than a couple of weeks, but we'll see. He's floor spacing right now. And then with Duren, he's more interesting than these other guys, but also he's hurt. Ryan, I would strongly consider waiting towards the end of your week. Don't blow even your preparatory moves this week. I wouldn't blow them early. Kenneth. Oh, cool. Andre's got a new episode of the EuroLeague podcast coming out. Kenneth, would you hold Daniel Gafford for a game or 2 when Kristaps Porzingis is back? Only if you think KP is going to get re-injured, which is always a possibility with Porzingis. But we saw that Gafford's minutes were not at all guaranteed when KP was in. So probably not is my answer to that question. Does Killian Hayes have 12-team value? And what are your thoughts of Tari's silly season? You could have done here. Let me do something here, and I'm going to put it on the screen. I'm going to call it Tari silly season. Is this what you meant to type? Is that what you were doing? I hope that's what you're doing. If it's not what you're doing, then I'm extremely pleased with my own brain right now. So the Tari Eason stuff is because Jayshawn Tate is out. So 1-to-1 correlation. Tate had foul trouble in the previous ball game, so Eason got those minutes. Tate missed the front end of a back-to-back, so Eason got those minutes. Kevin Porter Jr. is due back tonight. Jalen Green might sit the back-to-back. We'll see. But at some point, both of those guys are going to be in, and then things get really messy for the Rockets. You guys know, I've said it a million times on this pod. I love Tari Eason's fantasy game. Love. But he's still blocked by forwards in that lineup. And they seem somewhat reticent to play Eason additional minutes. So my take here is that on the Eason side, I wish it's kind of in an I wish type of scenario. It's one of those things where maybe I've seen it happen before, where you pick it up and it's not great, but maybe it moves towards great. But I'm not going to stash him anymore, and unless we find out that Jayshawn Tate is getting shut down or something, then Eason's minutes are a little bit stuck. So I don't think he's a must-roster guy. I think, Houston's next back-to-back, if we assume that Tate's going to miss one of those 2 games, then Eason would be a spot play in that one, but that's about as far as it goes right now, while Tate is around. That's the big caveat. If that changes for any reason, then obviously change your assessment. And then on the Killian Hayes front, while Jaden Ivey missed a ball game, then Hayes did, but I think Ivey's due back for the next one, so probably not in 9 category leagues. And Jason, better trade PG for Jalen Williams, Cam Johnson, Dennis Smith Jr., or OG for Jalen Williams and Dennis Smith Jr. Okay, so you're going for depth here. I don't really like either of them. You're selling very low on OG Anunoby. Jalen Williams has been very good. Dennis Smith Jr. is going to be okay, but not great. I like him, but he's going to be okay, not great. I'm not going to get carried away on the Dennis Smith Jr. front. I don't like either of these trades. I feel like you're giving up the best asset for a combination of lesser players. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably go with the OG one, because at least he's in a deep, deep slump right now, and he's kind of sulking, and the Raptors added more players that see extra minutes. But I mean, OG's going to get better. This is a deep slump. It happens. Is this what everybody was talking about? Was that a joke that's already been made? Probably. Not original on any of this stuff. All right, that was the first 5. We will pick up at Chapaz in our post-game stuff. Anybody that's watching here live, make sure to use the live YouTube chat. Throw your questions in there. We'll hit them up after the show. That'll be the tail end. And now, let's get the recording software hooked up. And then we'll start the part that goes out on the to the recorded side. Good? All right. I'll be back in 1 second, everybody. Sit tight. What struck me as weird about yesterday's basketball games is that we had this big Tuesday card, an unusually large, frankly, Tuesday card, where I didn't feel like almost any big rest of season or even medium-term fantasy stuff popped up out of the Tuesday. After we had a Monday where a bunch of things emerged. You just sort of never know which card or which game is going to have the big fantasy impact. You just never know. Well. Anywho, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Dan Vespers. This is Fantasy NBA Today. I hope you guys will, as usual, find me on Twitter over at Dan Vespers. This is a Sports Ethos presentation. SportsEthos.com, the website. Ethos Fantasy BK and Ethos Fantasy BB. I'm trying to get you guys to go check out our baseball stuff, which is super rad. Super rad baseball stuff. We got a baseball draft guide out now. That's at sportsethos.com. Go get yourself one. I know somebody listening to this show plays fantasy baseball. $5.99. If you can find a cheaper fantasy baseball draft guide out there, I'd be positively floored. But we got a big Tuesday to dive in, so I don't want to mess around for too long. Let's just go ahead and get started on that. Toronto beat Chicago. Raptors have suddenly started playing defense. Not surprisingly, they got a guy who can play defense, and then they're able to kind of anchor themselves to him, and that, of course, is Jakob Poeltl. Raptors have won 8 of their last 10 ball games. They've been markedly better. Not all of those have been with Poeltl. I think only the last, 5 or something like that. They've been markedly better with him. Raptors are up to the 9 seed in the Eastern Conference now, hard charging, and they are a mere game away from jumping into a home court situation in the play-in tournament. They'll have their hands full to try to get out of it. Nets are 4 games ahead of the Raps, but they're feeling better about themselves right now. And we got our first look at Toronto at mostly healthy. In that Freddie VanVleet was back. He wasn't good, but he was back. And it moved Gary Trent to the bench, as I said it likely would here on the podcast. And Trent was still very good. Got 13 shots up, hit 5 3-pointers, 19 points, couple of steals. Pirtle continued to start. His minutes were a little bit lower in this one. Pirtle's were. But nothing to worry about. He still had 5 defensive stats. Jakob's going to dunk on people the rest of the way. And for Chicago, they lost their first game since they signed Patrick Beverley, which, they still played defense, though. Just turned the ball over way too many times. 19-11, they lost the turnover battle. They committed 19. You catch my drift. No fantasy stuff on the Chicago side. Shuffling along, here we go. Washington beat Atlanta on the road. Quinn Snyder's debut for the Hawks didn't go according to plan. This was a relatively clean ball game. Wizards just shot it a tiny bit better and rebounded a tiny bit better, and that was the ball game. Couple things to pick up on here. Number one, if you're looking at the Wizards side, well, no Kristaps Porzingis. They won anyway. Daniel Gafford is a monster at center when Porzingis is out. I put something out on social media about this. Again, that's over at Dan Vespris. Well, when Porzingis is resting or hurt or whatever it turns out to be, Gafford posts possible top 50 type of ball games. That's not to be conflated with the idea of him being a top 50 fantasy play, but he is a potential top 50 stream for the next, game or two. I think Porzingis is probably back by next week. I guess I don't really know for sure, but he was doubtful going to the last ball game. A lot of times there's a steady progression depending on, we're talking about yesterday was Tuesday, so you still have like another almost full week to get to Monday of next week. But still, if you get 2 more games at a Gafford tomorrow and Saturday this week, that's well worth it. Dude has, in his 2 games so far, filling in for Porzingis over the weekend and then yesterday, Gafford has 28 points, 23 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 blocks, and he's shooting 12 out of 15. Yes, that's 80%. 80% and 3.5 defensive stats per ball game. Yeah, he's a bit over his head with that stuff, but 14 points, 11.5 rebounds, really high field goal percent. That's not out of the realm of possibility here for the next couple of ball games as well. So I love the Gafford thing. Monte Morris being out is, I would argue, a tiny bit more confusing almost, because you're seeing DeLon Wright pick up these big starters minutes, but then kind of do nothing with them. And you could make I think, a pretty reasonable argument that DeLon Wright's been better running the bench unit than he has playing alongside Bradley Beal and Kyle Kuzma and just getting nothing to do. Beal and Kuzma took 56 of the Wizards' 97 shots in this ball game. They went 9 deep, and 2 of those 9 players took 56 out of the 97 shots. That's crazy. But again, this is what, DeLon Wright, 4 shots in 31 minutes. It was the lowest usage rate of anybody on the team. Still got some assists. He did get a block. No steals, which is kind of weird for Wright. But, yeah, they put him on Trae Young, and Trae had a pretty good ball game. I don't know, but however you want to sort of color this one in. But either way, DeLon's a hold. Gafford's a mega stream. And then if we're looking at the Atlanta side to try to figure out anything we can learn from Quinn Snyder in game 1, with the very large note, corollary, that it is 1 game under a new head coach who very badly wanted to win his first game as the Hawks head coach. He played his starters pretty damn heavy minutes. Clint Capella in particular was a big one. I don't remember the last time Capella played the 35 minutes in a ball game. I'm sure it happened at some point this year. It's not like the most anomalous occurrence, but that was not a number that Nate McMillan was letting Capella get to very often. Clint had a 36-minute game on January the 23rd. That was the last time he even cleared 30 minutes in a ball game. Again, he did plenty of 30-minute games under McMillan, but this 35-minute show was, I believe, the 2nd highest minute total for Capella all season, just to that 1 game in January. Which, by the way, In that one, he was dealing with, that game in January, he was dealing with Nikola Vucevic. In this one, he was dealing with Gafford. So what's the takeaway here? I wouldn't read too much into it. Okongwu had 5 fouls in 13 minutes. That obviously sliced into his possible playing time. If you have Okongwu, who had been playing really well, you hold, because it is just one bad game. It's just one. John Collins just 10-4. I thought he would ramp up after the trade deadline. I don't know what this coaching change does to him. You're holding on Collins. He was a guy we faded on draft night on this podcast. Just with DeJounte Murray coming in, it just felt like that was going to minimize him even further, and it has. And now Saddiq Bey coming in has an opportunity to minimize Collins even beyond that. Still, I'd be surprised, just given the fact that Collins is he's good at both percentages. He gets some blocks, some steals, some rebounds, some points. He's just too slightly above average in too many categories to completely fall off the map. But I think it's going to be kind of a slog. And then as far as Saddiq Bey goes, I know he had a better ball game here. He had 4 3-pointers. That kind of floated his value a little bit. To me, this is maybe one of the better case scenarios for him. So he's not a guy that I'm diving into very much. Milwaukee beat Brooklyn. 0 surprises at all on the Nets side. Cam Thomas still got 23 minutes, which generally is going to be about enough for him. He just missed everything. 0 for 7 from the field. I don't want to act like I think he's in for a really good ending. We've been sort of, as Cam Thomas goes, we've been kind of just calling him a hold and wait and see to see what his role turns out to be. And it seems like he's going to be a bench gunner for the Nets, which on many evenings is going to be a necessary commodity. I think he makes more sense on the head-to-head side because it doesn't really have a roto-friendly game anyway. And I think if you have him on the head-to-head side, this is not the game you look at and you think, oh, well, I should drop him right now because he went over. What about Milwaukee? They had everybody, really, in this one, and they didn't need everybody. They were able to kind of wipe the floor with Brooklyn early, so the starters didn't have to play that many minutes. Chris Middleton only 23, but he did post a good line anyway. The only thing to take away on the Milwaukee side is now that guys seem to be getting right, what's everybody's job? Bobby Portis only played 16 minutes in this one. Jay Crowder only 16 minutes in this one. Pat Connaughton was back up to 22 as the starting wing. If you want to call it, I guess he's sort of filling in for Chris Middleton there, but you move bodies around. If Middleton ever gets into the starting lineup, I have no idea. I assume they'll bench Connaughton, but I don't know. It could be Grayson Allen that hits the pine. Either way, none of these guys is a fantasy value when the team is fully healthy. They might rest half of them tonight, in which case then you do look at a guy like Grayson Allen or a guy like Pat Connaughton or, frankly, Bobby Portis because they'll probably need a little bit more offense. We don't know who's playing. There are 5 guys on the Bucks listed as maybe resting for tonight. So we'll see. But if you're trying to make calls on deeper leagues, which, this is actually a problem that I'm running into personally right now. I have Pat Connaughton and Jay Crowder on our 30-team league. That's the big industry league known as 30 Deep. It's been around forever. Right now, Connaughton looks like he's kind of in the driver's seat of that one. But whatever. Lakers, no LeBron, no D'Angelo Russell. They were able to hang in there with the Grizzlies for a long time, but the Lakers lost the turnover battle by 20. 26-6. The Grizzlies had 26 more field goal attempts than the Lakers in this game. You're just not going to win it, which is a damn shame if, me, Laker fan over here, they actually got a chance to win this ball game. If they just turned, okay, if you want to get real wild and say the turnover battle was even, and the Lakers got 20 extra possessions, they scored 109 points on 86 shots and 23 free throws. So you give them another 20 more, they would have won this ball game. That's what it was. This game came down to turnovers, and the Grizzlies were much better at taking care of the basketball. As far as fantasy stuff goes, Xavier Tillman, I made a last-second decision yesterday to pick up and stream Tillman in a head-to-head league. Once we found out he was starting against the Lakers, I was like, all right, you know what? This dude's going to get This dude's going to get rebounds because we've seen that against the Lakers when they throw extra bodies at a guy like Ja Morant. Other guys are able to come sweeping in and get rebounds, and that's exactly what Tillman was able to do. And then they've got a back-to-back with Alperen Şengün is the next one on the docket, so who knows? They could go either direction at center in that one, but I was like, you know what? I think it'll be Tillman for both. I don't know for sure. So far, so good on that little mini stream, but I wouldn't pick him up tonight. It only made sense on a back-to-back. As far as the Lakers go, Dennis Schroeder, 6 of those 26 turnovers. That was the bad news. The 10 assists was kind of the good news for him, and he'll be okay as long as both LeBron and D'Lo are out. So you can probably stream Schroeder again tonight because LeBron is out, and Russell is listed as doubtful right now, meaning I don't think we'll see him. I know we did a whole feature 2 days ago on how good Jared Vanderbilt has been, and then a lot of folks looked at this game and went, oh no, the sky is falling. The sky didn't fall, people. He played 29 minutes. 29 minutes is more than enough for Vanderbilt in every scenario, except games where he's getting offensive rebounds and then trying to go back up against Jaren Jackson Jr. That's the story of this ball game. Jared Vanderbilt couldn't finish around the rim against the Grizzlies' interior defense. And he went 1 for 6 shooting on point blank opportunities. For some reason, like, I watched this game from start to finish yesterday. Every time he got near the rim, he went to like a crazy reverse English layup instead of just trying to dunk it. And the only bucket he made was on a rebound that got tipped up in the air and landed right in his lap under the bucket, and nobody else was nearby. He will be fine. Jared Vanderbilt will be fine. I bet he goes full. I'm just going to go hog. He's just going to go. You're going to eat the whole beast here against the Thunder tonight. Because they don't really have any other options for energy guys. LeBron is out, so someone's got to soak up some of those minutes. And they'll get their points elsewhere. AD is going to do scoring. Beasley, Lonnie Walker, Schroeder, Austin Reeves, whatever. So if you're like, what about Rui Hachimura? He's just not good enough on defense to overtake Vanderbilt. I liked what Vanderbilt did in this ball game. If he could have finished 3 out of his 6 layups, we'd be talking about 10 points, 8 boards, and 2 defensive stats. And you guys would be like, great, Vanderbilt looked awesome. But he had 4 points, so everybody wants to throw the whole thing in the garbage. Please don't throw it in the garbage. Malik Beasley's a start. While D'Lo and LeBron are out, I don't know that he's going to have enough usage when either one of those guys comes back. We can kind of play it by ear a little bit on that front. Schroeder, I can pretty much guarantee won't have value when D'Angelo Russell comes back. And then I got a lot of Austin Reeves questions. I mean, it's hard not to love Austin Reeves because, first of all, his nickname is Hillbilly Kobe. They call him HBK. And he just plays with a certain swagger. And then he went for 17 points, 7 assists, a steal, a block, and 4 3-pointers in yesterday's game. But it's also worth pointing out that he hit 4 3-pointers in the first half alone, including a 4-point play. I believe that he had 15 of his 17 points at halftime. Yeah, he scored 2 points in the second half. It just wasn't the same thing. He's a dude who got hot. Yes, while both D'Lo and LeBron are out, he's possibly worth taking a flyer on, but I'm not super confident because if he wasn't lava hot, Darvin Ham's going to be mixing and matching here and just trying to find the right combo without any orchestrators on the floor. The Lakers were extremely competitive in this game without anybody that could really create their own shot. Sorry, Dennis Schroeder. I know you had 10 assists, but no. And then Reeves, kind of the other thing. And that's why the team had 26 damn turnovers, because they had nobody they could trust with the basketball. And I'm going to say something insane. With no D'Lo and no LeBron, this is actually a game the Lakers kind of missed Russell Westbrook. Yes, it was really nice to have Vanderbilt and Beasley as part of the mix. Sure. But on this one night, and I don't think it's going to be the case against the Thunder, but here against a Memphis team that can really ball hawk on defense, I think they missed a point guard who can actually get the ball into the front court. Now, Russ would have probably had 9 turnovers in this game, but everybody else might have been able to combine for like 4 or 5. Instead, in this one, they just kept trying to give it to everybody. Everybody was trying to drive because no one could get any space, and everybody turned it over and over and over. I don't think that'll be the case against the Thunder. They are not a ball-pressuring team other than Jalen Williams, who probably has 4 steals in this one against, again, a Lakers team that can't really take care of the basketball without D'Lo and LeBron. But otherwise, I think you'll see, far fewer issues in the turnover department. And then, all the guys that we just talked about, Schroeder, Vandy, Beasley, maybe Reeves. And Anthony Davis is going to have to be huge in this ballgame as well. And frankly, he should be. Because if AD can do this to JJJ and Tillman, he should be able to do it to Jalen Williams and Kenrich Williams and whoever else the Thunder throw at him at the center spot. And Dario Saric. Doop-a-doo, moving along. Denver, blowout over Houston. You can throw out a lot of the box score for the Nuggets. It was nice to see that Jamal Murray, who was a game-time call, was fine. Obviously fine. 32 points in 32 minutes. That'll work. Nikola Jokic didn't even really have to play in this ballgame. I mean, this was the full, I'm not going to try Nikola Jokic. That dude has a real knack for knowing when he needs to crank it up. And this was a low-effort game. It was almost like he got a rest day. Jokic ho-hum triple-double, one of his worst games in like 3 months. Oh, Houston, couldn't you at least have put up a damn fight? Stinking Rockets. You suck. I need all of my Nuggets to go big. A couple of them did. Jamal went big. MPJ had a good ball game. KCP was good again. Do we need to do another Kentavious Caldwell-Pope thread about how good he's been this year and how nobody's really noticed or cared? He's number 77 per game, and he just played in his 60th game of the year yesterday, which means he's number 44 by totals. KCP is actually going to quietly be one of the best late-round grabs in fantasy, especially on the head-to-head side, because he's just there. He's so freaking reliable. God, I love reliability. Hey, YouTubers, please take a second to like and subscribe. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, what about over on the Houston side? Getting a lot of Tari Eason questions. Got some Eason questions on the YouTube show before we hit the record button. Here's what it comes down to. You guys know, I've said it 30 times at least on this podcast throughout this season, that I adore Tari Eason's fantasy game. If he ever finds a spot, whether it's Houston or somewhere else, on a team that gives him 25 minutes or more, he's inside the top 100, which is pretty cool for a wing. Might even not need 25 minutes. He might be able to do it in 23. Yesterday, he got 31. But here's the important part. We got to understand why. And I know a lot of you are, the next thing you guys are saying is, hey, well, Eason's actually had big minutes in now 2 games in a row. Is this a trend or is this an outlier? And I'm here to tell you that, unfortunately, it's a little bit of an outlier. Because, apologies, my microphone glitched for a moment there. Because Jae'Sean Tate didn't play yesterday. And in the previous game in Portland, Jae'Sean Tate was in foul trouble. Tari Eason's minutes right now are directly linked to how much Jae'Sean Tate is playing in the ballgame. And if you want to look back, look at the game in Golden State against the Warriors, whatever that was, 5 or 6 days ago, where Eason got 23 minutes. Tate got 28. And if you want to look at the one after that, where Eason's minutes went up to 28, Tate, who was in foul trouble in that ball game, played 25. Yes, if you're thinking, boy, it seems like the 3 to 4 minutes that Tate didn't play in one game went directly to Tari Eason, you'd be right. And then Tate didn't play at all in this most recent ball game. He'll play, sounds like he's back in tonight on the second half of Houston's back-to-back. But at that point, when Tate's 28 minutes or whatever he's playing went to 0, well, then 8 or 9 of those went to Tari Eason against his normal number. So I love Eason. I love his fantasy game. He's a double-double machine at the small forward, power forward spot. He's a steals machine at that spot on the floor. His game translates to fantasy extraordinarily well, which means he's always someone that we want to keep an eye on. Guys that can post numbers that quickly are guys that you want to be watching nightly to see if they're about to turn a corner. So what I would suggest is this. The short term, or the quick way of saying it in fantasy is speculative add. You can add him, but just understand that tonight, Tate's going to be back in there, probably playing 26 to 30 minutes, and that probably pushes Eason back down to 22 to 24, which is going to force Eason right to the very bitter edge of fantasy value, and you're going to be bouncing back and forth on whether or not you want to deal with it every single night. Sacramento, there's a whole lot of nothing going on with the Kings. De'Aaron Fox set this ball game out. Davion Mitchell had 15 and 4. The last couple times he filled in for Fox, he was awful, so I don't think I'm going to do anything with it. But of course, when Fox sits, that's when everybody else gets to do a whole bunch of extra stuff. And against an Oklahoma City team that loves to play fast, both of these teams love to play fast. This was a very nice spot to pick up some fantasy numbers. And for the Kings, 19 turnovers, or they could have actually done even more on the offensive side. For the Thunder, still no SGA. He's in COVID protocols now. Womp womp. Jalen Williams, he's a force. He's really come on this year. Moved into a bigger role when Alexei Pokusevski and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl got hurt, and he has just not relinquished. And then beyond that, you had kind of the carousel going here. I thought Isaiah Joe would get a bunch of shots up, which he did first couple games SGA missed. He only took 5 in this ball game. And maybe you can say that was Davion Mitchell on defense. It's hard to know for sure. Josh Giddey was quieter. You could probably say that was partly Davion Mitchell. I don't know. The Thunder are going to mess around with lineups, see what fits. And really, there were like 2 guys that played well enough to see bigger minutes yesterday. It was Jalen Williams, who was a +5, Kenrich Williams, which is a +14. And then if you want to extend it, Dario Saric got real hot off the bench. And so he jacked all the Jalen Williams minutes. Aaron Wiggins outplayed Isaiah Joe and so on and so forth. And so it all got discombobulated. Thunder play the Lakers tonight. My guess is that Isaiah Joe is going to get a bunch of 3-pointers up against the Lakers because everybody gets up to play the Lakers. My guess is that Anthony Davis, knowing that they need to tread water here until LeBron comes back, he's going to pick on some big dudes on that Thunder side. I'd be pretty cautious about playing any big dudes. Jalen Williams is going to get a bunch of steals. Kenrich Williams is probably going to get a few also. But the guys I think I would play, or Guy maybe, you go Josh Giddey. You obviously go Jalen Williams. He's been amazing lately. And then you probably go Isaiah Joe and hope that he hits 4 or 5 3-pointers. That's kind of what you're banking on. Nothing for Indiana. I know Jordan Nwora had a bitter ball game, but I don't really care. And then on the Dallas side, Christian Wood got hurt late in this ball game. It's still a little bit nebulous what happened with him. Probably would have played about 4-ish additional minutes. Again, repeat myself, he's just a low 20s to mid 20s minutes guy. Now, Maxi Kleber came back. He'll be a 20-some-odd minute guy. Dwight Powell can be a 20-some-odd minute guy. 3-headed monsters are never good for fantasy. What do you do with them? Well, you don't pick up Powell. You don't pick up Kleber. And if you have Christian Wood, which meant that you didn't listen to me during my draft shows because I said he was way too polarized. The season could go so well. It could go so poorly. I didn't want anything to do with the wide variance. You guys know I hate variance in my fantasy drafts. Christian Wood's number 74 right now in 27 minutes per game. So just extrapolate that, and you could say if he plays 23, 24 minutes, he'll be a bit behind that mark. That's the best way you can handicap it at this point. Luka had a big one. Kyrie kind of took a little bit of a backseat in this particular ball game, and then Kyrie got a last-second shot and couldn't hit it. Dallas is slumping since they picked up Kyrie. Not surprisingly, when you mix 2 alphas, it takes a while to figure out how to fit them together. Who the hell's not slumping? I mean, it's really funny how if you just win 3 games in a row in the Western Conference, you go from out of the playoffs to above the play-in tournament. That's what the Warriors have basically done. I think they were what? Were they the 10? They were the 10 seed less than a week ago. They've won 3 games in a row now, probably because they've been playing home games. Warriors are 25-7 at home. They're 7-23 on the road. Ugh. But they're now the 5 seed. The Clippers can't win a game to save their lives all of a sudden. The Mavs are tanking. The Pelicans have fallen apart at the seams. The Thunder without SGA, they can't win to save their lives. The Spurs won a game yesterday against the Jazz, which we're about to talk about that one, so let's shuffle along. That's a terrible outcome for both of these teams. The Jazz now fall 1 game under 500. They had an opportunity actually to put a little bit of distance between themselves and the Pels, Blazers, Lakers, and Thunder, and they whiffed on it. But from a fantasy standpoint, and then with the Spurs, I think you're starting to see these sort of bottom teams. Spurs had lost, I think, 15 games in a row before this. So they've more than done their part to get their tank on. The bottom 3 are now so far behind the 4th worst team, which right now is the Hornets, that you could actually see the Spurs, the Pistons, and the Rockets not try to lose every single ball game. The problem, of course, is that the Rockets in particular, I don't know that they have what it takes to win a ball game, even if they're not tanking. The Pistons, not while all these guys are hurt, at the very least. And then the Spurs, you might actually see them accidentally win a couple of ball games here because it sort of doesn't matter. They're not going to move out of the bottom 3. So, whatever. Anyway, Malachi Branham left this ball game early with some lower back soreness. Kind of felt like an opportunity to tank there. But the Spurs, no real changes here. I mean, I hate repeating the same things every single time. So we're just going to Spurs lightning round it. Charles Bassey saw extra minutes because Zach Collins couldn't shoot. Bassey can be a watch list guy. Doug McDermott saw extra minutes because Malachi Branham went out early. You can't trust Doug because literally all he does is hit 3-pointers and almost nothing else ever. Zach Collins is a hold. Keldon Johnson is a hold. Devontae Graham is a stream now, probably with Branham out, because I don't know that they'll have any choice other than to start Devontae, although Trey Jones sounds like he's close to coming back. I wouldn't start him in Roto his first game back. Head-to-head, Trey Jones is a guy that should be rostered and started. He was inside the top 90 when he was healthier earlier this year. Jeremy Sohan, points league type. Branham, when he's back, more of a points league type. Keldon Johnson just above that, and that's your Spurs lightning round. Oh, and Devin Vassell, who may or may not surface at some point, but stash him in Roto, head-to-head, don't deal with it. Utah, Talen Horton-Tucker got 30 minutes. That was the thing I was looking for, to see if he would still get playing time, even as Kris Dunn comes on. Ochai Agbaji, though, got hurt early, and that did have a role because that allowed them to go with both Dunn and THT, and everybody's hurt for Utah right now. Sexton's out for a couple more ball games, which means, barring anybody else coming back for the Jazz, that both THT and Kris Dunn can probably be streamed until Colin Sexton or Agbaji come back. Or both, I guess. Walker Kessler, big game. Larry Markkinen, big game. Kelly Olynyk, bad shooting game, but he'll be fine. I really think Olynyk could be a top 60 kind of range guy the rest of the way. He's just going to be out there a ton. And he's going to have to do stuff, too. Kelly Olynyk with a little bit of usage is chef's kiss. I guess I need to do it, right? Jaden McDaniels is on one of his little heaters. He has these sort of up and down stretches where we've talked about McDaniels a few times this year. When he's good, he pushes himself back up. When he's bad, he pushes himself back down. He's been bouncing back and forth between basically like 85 and 115 the whole year, and he's at 107 right now. He's really the prototypical head-to-head guy that belongs at the very end of your roster, and the Roto guy where you kind of play him when he's hot. Otherwise, no news, no notes on Minnesota's side. Everything else went pretty much as you expected here. Ivica Zubac came back for the Clippers, continues to hold off Mason Plumlee for the time being. So keep Zubac for now. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi didn't shoot the ball well. Russ had another decent fantasy game. But man, I don't want to put more of the blame on Russ here than needs to be, but I also don't think you can call it coincidence that the Clippers have lost 3 games in a row since his arrival. And it's not Russ's play that's done it. Okay, let's try to make this extraordinarily clear. When we say, oh, well, it's Russ's fault, it's actually not Russ's fault individually that the Clippers are losing right now. Look, I'll be the first to put blame on Russ if he deserves it. And a lot of what went wrong with the Lakers was the combination of Russ's play and his contract. His contract with the Clippers is nil. His play with the Clippers has been at least average, maybe even a tiny bit better than that. He took a bad shot down the stretch in this ball game, a contested mid-ranger when the Clippers were trying to make a last gasp run. I don't think the Clippers are going to catch the Wolves and win the game anyway. I know I saw Clippers Twitter go nuts when Russ took a bad shot. But, overall in this ball game, he was no better or worse than anybody else on the team. The reason that things have gone bumpy for the Clippers is that Russ's mere presence has shaken up a rotation that had finally solidified for the Clippers. Norman Powell had his role carved out. Batum, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, Eric Gordon, who they traded for and now they're not even really playing him. All of these guys had a role they were excited about. The pieces were fitting together. And now the Clippers have just taken the puzzle apart and they've piled all the pieces up and they're trying to resort it. They have a little bit of time left to try to figure out what works, but they're at 64 games played right now. There's only 18 games left for the Clippers from this point on. They're a team that's played one of the higher numbers of games in the NBA. A lot of teams are at 62. Some teams are at 61. Clippers at 64. So they got to figure out how all these pieces fit together in 18 ball games with Paul George and Kawhi probably not playing back-to-backs. So I think a lot of the issues and a lot of the anger and annoyance around Clippers and in Clippers media circles is that they took something that was working and they decided to kind of shoot the moon and say, you know what? If we can figure this out with Russ, then we'll be better than we were before. But it's almost like they didn't account for how much chemistry stuff needs to happen when you bring in a player like Russell Westbrook. So again, it's not his fault. It's just the Clippers did something that, to me, was a dice roll that they didn't need to do. And so now you got guys like Norman Powell who are going to be kind of playing a little bit irritated because their minutes got thrown into the sun and Terrence Mann's minutes got thrown into the sun, and everybody's going to have to sort this out, and the locker room's going to be a little bit annoyed. And if they start winning, that'll solve it. But if they don't, it can get ugly. But for now, Russ is actually playing relatively well. And from a fantasy standpoint, his role with this team is a pretty good fit for him. I still think there's no chance he has 9 cat value the rest of the way, but 8 cat and definitely points leagues, you are looking at him. Golden State beat up on the Blazers. This is honestly a game that Portland really needed to play better in, and they didn't. Blazers are the 11 seed right now. They've been tumbling. Seems like they need Nurk back. They definitely need Anthony Simons back, but whatever. Let's look at it from a fantasy standpoint. Shaedon Sharpe played 31 minutes off the bench. He's close, but I'm not going to do anything with it. Drew Eubanks, kind of again, back-end center stuff. I said I wasn't super interested in Cam Reddish despite him playing minutes, and this is why. 10 points, 2 boards, 4 turnovers. Matisse Thybulle had a really nice ball game. I think it was a career-high 5 3-pointers for him. A steal and 2 blocks, and that's what you can expect out of him. Defensive stuff and anything else is just gravy. And then the Warriors did a good job on Dame in this ball game. Combo effort for the Dubs. Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, Draymond Green anchoring on the interior. Just kind of how they wanted to deal with Damian Lillard, and it worked out well, which was don't let him take 40 shots because the rest of these guys probably aren't going to beat us. They also slowed down Jeremy Grant. So anyway, on the Warriors side, Donte DiVincenzo is a very obvious play right now with no Wiggins and no Steph. Jonathan Kuminga was a little bit better here, but I trust that about as far as I can throw it. And then Kevon Looney, not surprisingly, slowed down a bit with Draymond Green back. He was still fine, but, no defensive stats. Carried it with a 7 for 8 shooting game more than anything else. And he's generally part of their stronger lineups. So, schedule stream is probably the play on Kevon. Hey, mid-show here, before we pivot towards the look-ahead portion of the proceedings, because we got a Wednesday card that's also of decent girth. Another 9-gamer here to look ahead to. I want to remind everybody that's listening on the recorded side to come join us on YouTube for our next show. That's youtube.com/sportsethos. I've been trying really hard to make sure that our most recent videos get popped up on kind of that YouTube homepage. A couple of you did reach out yesterday about perhaps working a podcast here at Sports Ethos. I want to throw that back out there as well. You can hit me up on Twitter at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris, or just throw something in the YouTube chat if you're watching right now. If you are with us live on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're watching it later on YouTube, go back and like and subscribe and do all that stuff to kind of continue to help us grow. And a reminder, mid-show, the baseball draft guide is available now at sportsethos.com. Click on the premium tab, choose Get Premium. Get Joe Orico's baseball ranks. They're coming out position by position. We've got Dynasty baseball articles, sleepers, busts, all the good stuff. It is just $5.99 at sportsethos.com. And a reminder, as always, to the folks that are watching live on YouTube, throw your questions in the chat room and we'll get to them after the show. Tonight, Chicago is in Detroit. Detroit, you're really just checking out who's healthy enough to take the floor. Otherwise, because if Duran's not playing, which I don't believe he is, James Wiseman will probably have a little bit of wiggle room. If Isaiah Stewart's not playing, he's questionable, I believe, right now, then Marvin Bagley has some wiggle room. Sounds like Jaden Ivey's probably back, so Killian Hayes is not going to be able to do as much. What does that mean for a guy like Alec Burks? Because Isaiah Livers might be out. By the way, looked that up. Watched a video from when he was back at Michigan. It is indeed Livers. If he's out, does that allow Burks to have a little bit more wiggle room? So Detroit is all about the game time calls today. Phoenix, big story there. Kevin Durant making his Suns debut tonight. Will be on a minutes cap, not surprisingly. The word has come out that he'll likely be on a minutes limit, but I mean, that's an obvious thing. Dude's been out for 7 weeks. So, yeah, with a leg thing, no less. So my guess is he'll play probably about 18 to 20 minutes, which amazingly for Kevin Durant, that's startable in all formats because he's frickin' Kevin Durant and he's a top 3 fantasy play in starters minutes. So get him to 20 and he'll easily get inside the top 100. Hopefully this is the start of a delightful ramp up for him. What does it mean for everybody else? Well, today, not a lot. Because he's not going to play that many minutes. So when he's out there, he's going to try to get as much usage as he can swallow. But it's not going to be anywhere near the amount of stuff that he'll ultimately do in 30 minutes a ball game or 32 minutes a game or whatever. So don't worry too much about the other guys on the Suns tonight. It will give us an indicator at least of who's going to the bench for Phoenix. I don't know. I think it will be Torrey Craig because Josh Okogie's been playing so unbelievably well lately, but I don't know for sure. It could be Okogie moving to the bench. Today, you could probably continue to stream Josh Okogie. It's iffy, but it's probably all right. I do believe that once KD is fully ramped up and all of these interesting guys, all of them being Okogie and, a smattering of dudes that probably don't warrant your interest, they get mushed into one spot on the floor. You can be like, oh, well, Torrey Craig is just going to back up Kevin Durant. It's not going to be that simple. He's going to back up Kevin Durant, but he's also going to be playing some small forward stuff as well. And so that's going to take a little bit away from Okogie. You just push guys into fewer available minutes. And so, yes, I am concerned that Okogie's not going to have value once KD's fully ramped up, but I don't think you have to do anything about it now. This is going to hurt Devin Booker, I would argue, more than anyone else on the Suns team because he is the volume guy. His value comes from getting a lot of shots up at the rim, and there will simply be fewer of those with KD around. In a way where with Chris Paul getting the ball, Kevin Durant, we want him for his assists anyway. CP3's barely taken any shots. He'll probably still be part of that second unit. So not as concerned there. And then with DeAndre Ayton, they still really do need his interior force. but he probably loses a tiny bit as well. Maybe it's going to be on the rebounding side because KD's a pretty good boarder. That's a dumb word for it. Anyway, he's averaging about 7 rebounds a game this year, so throw that in there. Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie, whatever, KD's probably going to out-rebound those dudes in the same amount of playing time there. Charlotte's side, no LaMelo the rest of the year, so we'll get our first look at the Hornets in the post-LaMelo era here. I do think Dennis Smith Jr. should be a pretty good play. Kelly Oubre should be pretty well ramped up. They're going to be fired up to face the Suns on KD return night, and the Hornets have won 5 games in a row. Those were obviously with LaMelo, but you get it. Brooklyn, New York, battle for New York. Knicks have been playing a lot better than the Nets lately, which shouldn't surprise anyone. The Nets had this big, hey, we have all these really fun wings, and now it's kind of landing that they don't have superstar power on that team anymore, and they've lost 3 games in a row. And the Nets are just not that scary of a ball club these days, but they're going to get up for this one. Defensively, the Knicks are good. Does that mean this is a game where they'll need Cam Thomas a little more? Maybe. I think they're going to need scoring. So we'll see. On the Knicks side, there really isn't anything at this point. You're just sort of watching to see. I kind of need the Knicks to lose a game or two. So then they'll be like, all right, Josh Hart, you can start now. Because as long as they're winning every day, they're probably not going to upset the apple cart. The apple cart is good at the moment. Philly. Is this DeAnthony Melton's last stand? Could be. Miami. Kevin Love, if he's starting, go ahead and start him. Crazy as it seems. Kyle Lowry, I believe he's still out for this ball game, but apparently he's now getting closer. Oh, and by the way, Anthony Davis just got ruled out for the Lakers as well. Yikes. What are you doing, Lakers? If you knew you were going to have AD for one half of the back-to-back, why wasn't it the one against the Thunder? I have no explanation for why Anthony Davis played against the Grizzlies in an unbelievably difficult game and is not playing against the Thunder. That's brutal. Ugh. Whatever. I'm going to take my rage to social media on that one. What are you doing? Anyway, hey, guess what? Mo Bamba's in the mix because he's probably going to have to play a bunch of minutes. They could try to play Wenyen Gabriel a ton. Maybe they will, but Bamba can rack up fantasy stats pretty quick. Hello, new streamer on the board. Oh, that's an awful, awful set of circumstances. Yikes. Anyway, back to our look ahead here. Cleveland, nothing. Boston, nothing. Orlando, does Jonathan Isaac come back from his hammy? Milwaukee, how many of the regulars are resting? Memphis, really just who's starting at center? Houston, Tari Eason, who we talked about a bunch earlier on. But, you know, again, I do think that comes down a lot to the Jayshawn Tate thing. Although if this game turns into a blowout, maybe he gets in there. Lakers, well, we just added one more thing to the mix. No Anthony Davis, so more streamers. Schroeder is a stream, and Beasley's a play, and Vanderbilt's going to have to rebound his butt off, and Bamba's probably going to have a decent ball game, and the Lakers are going to lose a must-win game to the Thunder. This makes me, oh boy, this Anthony Davis resting against the Thunder instead of the Grizzlies thing kind of makes me feel like LeBron isn't coming back. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but if they really thought LeBron was going to return in 3 weeks, this would have been the game to circle. Lakers are right in front of the Thunder. They weren't going to beat the Grizzlies in Memphis. Good Lord, that stupid use of your personnel. Anyway, for OKC, we talked about them already. It takes a little bit of the shine off of this ball game for them, I guess. But, you know, Isaiah Joe, he'll get some shots up. Jalen Williams, like we talked about. Giddey should be better here. Pelicans, I don't see anything changing in a big way here. I still like Herb Jones. I still like Josh Richardson. And then for Portland, we saw them yesterday in the Warriors game. Thibault, Dame, Jeremy Grant, Eubanks kind of right on the border. Not a whole lot that we're watching outside of the stuff we've kind of already seen with those clubs. But, oh boy, yikes to the Lakers. Yikes to the Lakers. All right, well, that about does it. I'm so mad right now that I can't even get to the end of the podcast in one piece. Oh, man. Recorded listeners, you guys are the best. We'll continue to talk to you daily. Back at you tomorrow morning. On Thursday, we'll break down this big Wednesday card just like we always do. Tomorrow, we might start to dig in on the long streaming stuff because you want to start to look at that if you're headed towards your playoffs starting next week. We'll definitely do more of that stuff on Friday as well. And again, join us over on the YouTube side for all future shows. We're having a lot of fun over there. I'm Dan Vespers for Fantasy NBA Today. This is, again, a Sports Ethos presentation. Get a baseball draft guide, you jerks. And follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespers, DanBesbris. The post show continues on YouTube. To the recorded folks, see you tomorrow. All right, YouTubers, if you got questions, this is your time to pop them in there. I'm going to put out one more tweet. I'm so mad about the Lakers right now. That is so dumb. What are they doing? I was wondering when we saw AD playing yesterday, I was like, oh, I guess he's playing in back-to-backs now. And then, wow, what a head-scratching move. I'm filled with ire. All right, Chapaz, you got the first question here. Let's see. I got to change where my face is at so you guys can see the rank board. There we go. Somebody dropped Horford in a 12-team head-to-head league. No, not really. Head-to-head, he's a tougher sell because he's a low-turnover guy who also sits back-to-backs. He's much more of a roto play with that team fully healthy at the very least, so I don't know that you need to. And he doesn't fit as a schedule play, again, because he sits out the back-to-back games. Keegan or Eason? It's Keegan Murray on that one. He's playing full starters minutes every day. What are the best teams to look for players to schedule stream for the rest of the week? Let's see here. Well, Philly actually starts a 5 games in 7 nights setup going right now. So they have the best schedule between today and next Tuesday. There is no one in the NBA that has more than 3 games the rest of this week, and a lot of teams have 3 games the rest of this week. The question you're probably asking is, anybody have 3 games in the next 4 nights? And the answer is Philly, who we just talked about, is a 5 and 7, and that's it. The Sixers are interesting because then, if you're in a real bind, you could drop the Sixer and get 1 more game on Sunday, and if you're not, you hold on to them and you start Monday, Tuesday with back-to-back for that club. That's why Philly's so nice. But there really isn't anybody other than Philadelphia that you want to pounce on today unless you have a player on your team that only has 2 games the rest of this week, especially if one of those 2 is on a Sunday. So that's what you're trying to move off of today. Turn a 2-gamer into a 3-gamer, and in a best-case scenario, you turn a 2-gamer with limited flexibility into a 3-gamer with equally limited flexibility, or Philly with more flexibility. So we'll do more of that on tomorrow's show, though. We'll do the big start of long streaming stuff. Nobody answered my question. Is this a joke that people are already making that I just put on the screen? Tari Sillies Eason? This is a visual joke. You have to look at it. All right. Playoffs start week 21 until week 23 with Houston, Sacramento, Memphis play in 4 games each of those weeks. This is a question from T. What players on those teams would you target if I were to try to trade Darius Garland, Paul George, and Jordan Clarkson? Oh, my God. Well, Garland is better than anybody on Houston. You could try for De'Aaron Fox on Sacramento. You could try for Desmond Bane in Memphis. For Paul George, basically the same, or you could also aim for Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento. So you could aim just a tiny bit higher with PG. Paul George is better than anybody on the Grizzlies, but again, it would be Bane as the closest on a per-game ranking there. Maybe you could try to get to JJJ, but it's probably a little bit out of your price range. And then Jordan Clarkson is out and hasn't been very good. So he's one where you'd look at, like a Kevin Porter Jr. with Houston, if you think he comes back and stays healthy, or a Jalen Green on Houston, or even a Jabari Smith Jr. Sacramento, Malik Monk would be the comparative player there. Memphis, I don't know that there is one. Dylan Brooks is probably ranked somewhat close to Clarkson, but he's a tough one because Jordan's ranked like near the edge of the top 170. That's just not a fantasy asset. I had someone in one of my leagues trying to sell me on Jordan Clarkson. I'm like, dude, I know how to read a rank board. Unless you're punting a bunch of stuff, Clarkson's awful. Said it all year long, and you guys can yell at me all you want. God, I'm so mad about the Anthony Davis thing. Tari Eason or Matisse Thybulle worth playing in Roto? Probably Thybulle is the safer play there. If you find out that Jayshawn Tate has to miss a ball game, though, then you go Eason. Are Tyrese Maxey and John Collins worth playing in Roto? You can sit them until they look like they're heating up. I'm probably playing them because at this point of the year, I can't really afford to fall farther behind. I'll also tell you guys, I have 0 Tyrese Maxey's and 0 John Collins on any of my teams. Any of my 10 teams this year. I don't have a single Maxey or John Collins. Not one. I knew it was going to be a weird year for them. Denny Avdia? Yeah, he's a maybe. He's a schedule play. I don't think he's above the cut line for Roto. Playoffs start next week. Is LeBron a drop? Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a place to stash him, can't take zeros in the playoffs. I hope you have a spot to stash him. He's probably your best player on IL. No? I don't know. If you don't have an IL, then, I mean, yeah, you kind of have to. Anyone you like more in OKC's center fiasco night to night? Nah, it's always a damn roulette wheel. Kenrich Williams is the closest, Eric, but he disappears from time to time. So with OKC, you're just looking for a good schedule spot. None of those guys is an everyday play. Their schedule spot is... I don't have a great one here. Certainly not the rest of this. Well, they got 3 games the rest of this week and then 2 Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. So maybe you say Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Get 3 games in 4 nights at that point. Or next Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. Or just next Saturday, Sunday. They got a couple of back-to-backs next week, but there's 2 days off in between. So mix and match a little. I traded Miles Turner and I'm assuming that's Terry Rozier for Malcolm Brogdon and Donovan Mitchell. Probably a little bit of an overpay, but that's fine. I'm okay with it. Best streamers with Anthony Davis and D'Angelo Russell ruled out. Bamba, Vanderbilt, who I think is a rest of season play anyway, so not a streamer, but I'm playing him. Beasley's a stream. Schroeder's a stream. That's probably about as far as I go there. Reeves is a maybe. Hi, I'm already in the playoffs. I plan to sit KD this week because if I activate him, I'll have to drop Melton, and he has a back-to-back Monday, Tuesday next week, and then drop him after because KD plays then 2 games. Let me look at Phoenix's schedule here. Yeah, that makes sense. Phoenix a 2-game week next week. Yeah, that makes sense. KD will be pretty well ramped up by Wednesday of next week. I mean, it might not be at 30 minutes, but mid to high 20s would absolutely get the job done for Durant. So, yeah. Lakers sinking fast. Pell's loving every minute of this. Yeah. And I got to think AD's actually hurt, which that sucks. He played his ass off yesterday, but brutal. Who's the better stream the rest of this week? I have DeLon Wright, considering grabbing Thybulle, looking for a 3-and-D guy with minimal negative impact to both percentages. Josh Richardson is also floating around the wire as well. Let's see here. DeLon, 3 games. Pell's 2 games. So Richardson's out. Thybulle, 3 games. So it's Thybulle versus no, DeLon Wright only has 2 games. It's Thybulle. It's Thybulle. He's the only one of those 3 guys that has 3 games the rest of this week. So he wins. Will Zion play again for fantasy this season? I don't know, man. If your fantasy season goes to the very last day of the regular season, then the answer I would say is there's like a 40% chance he plays before the regular season's over. But if you're in the playoffs now and you've only got 3 weeks left, then the answer is probably no. Anyone to drop for Tari Eason or Matisse Thybulle? My possible drops are DeLon Wright, Killian Hayes, Daniel Gafford, THT, and newly picked up Dennis Smith Jr. 8 Cat Roto, punting points and threes. No, I might consider Killian Hayes for Matisse Thybulle, but you also badly need to have defensive stats. Is Oladipo worth the pickup? No. Do you still think Jabari Smith is a 12-team player? I don't know that I ever said he was a 12-team player. In fact, what is the one thing Dano says every year? Do not draft rookies. It's my only tenet. But if you've made it this far with him, you kind of need to ride it out. Because all of a sudden, something can click, and he has a really good fantasy game baseline. His percentage are just trash, but he scores, rebounds, steals, blocks, threes. There's a lot to love there if he wasn't a huge negative in both percentages. So the answer is yes, I actually think that at some point he's going to be a pretty damn good 9-category player in his career. I don't know what day it's going to click, but you made it to March, so is Royce O'Neal a drop in 16 or 18 teamers? Ooh, that's a tough one. Probably. He's not playing very much these days. Did get 28 minutes yesterday as kind of like the lone bench guy they trust, but just doesn't get to do anything. I'm going to say yes. You can go ahead and move on. Preferred flavor of potato chip. Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't do any of the ones that have cheese or milk flavor in them. So like Cool Ranch Doritos, I used to love when I was a kid. Can't do those anymore. Guys, I said this on an interview with somebody recently. I'm a simple man of simple pleasures. I like a traditional oily Lay's yellow bag potato chip. But if you offer me guacamole, then I'll put almost anything. I'll put anything in that. I love guac. I don't have that many. I'm not a sauce guy, but guacamole is amazing. So tortilla chips and guac, or just a straight Lay's salty. So simple, so effective. Pringles are weird, by the way. Can we talk about how Pringles are weird on another show? Is Michael Porter Jr. worth holding on to with one game left this week? My playoffs have started. Well, if you have 2 more weeks after this, the answer is yes. Because MPJ's actually been coming on a little bit lately. Here, let's pull up his numbers recently. He's had, I think, a pretty good stretch. Is it 3 weeks? Number 79 over the last 3 weeks. So maybe it's the last 2 weeks he's actually been cranking it up a little bit. There we go. Top 50 last 2 weeks. Because the field goal percent's been better. That's really what it comes down to for him. He can be a big-time percentages helper. You're not dropping a guy that can run top 50. And if memory serves, Denver goes into a pair of 4-game weeks after this. So I don't think you want to lose the 8 games of MPJ. Unless you're going to lose. If you're going to lose this week, then yeah. But you want to try to squeeze this one out. And hopefully your opponent has someone who doesn't have a particularly strong week anyway. Oh, is this a reschedule game? Was that the Wizards reschedule? Is that why I goofed that up? Because their original schedule this week only had 2. So DeLon 3 games. I forgot about the reschedule. Where are the other names on that one? Wayne. It was DeLon versus Thybulle. I'll go DeLon there. DeLon over Thybulle. Sorry, guys. Forgot about the reschedule. Favorite pizza and toppings? Oh, man. Another question for the lactose intolerant. Well, here's a built-in sponsorship for Costco Kirkland brand Lactaid pills. Oh, it's too bright in my light here. How do I get it out of the light? I don't think I can. Shade it. Costco brand fast-acting lactase. Throw it in your tummy and don't poop your pants on milk. Again, simple man. Give me a pepperoni pizza. Although, if you want to throw some more meat on that bad boy. So I guess it's like a meat lovers, effectively. Because I like to drown out the cheese flavor. I tried the cheeseless pizza route, but it's way too tomatoey. You need something to tamp down the sauce flavor. So I just need like the tiniest mono layer of cheese. I'll take a pill. And then give me a bunch of meat on that bad boy. Give me pepperoni and salami and ham and bacon and whatever the hell else you can throw on it, and I'll meat it up. Do you think Reddish can maintain value to be a 16-teamer? Yes. While Simons is out, Reddish is a 16-teamer. That's okay, but nothing higher than that. Eric, got any good forward-eligible recommendations for the rest of the week or even rest of season? Team is short on forwards. In playoffs, need rebounds, threes, blocks, and solid percentages. Thanks, 14-teamer. Ooh. This is kind of an impossible question because I have no idea who's on your waiver wire. I try to throw out all my different streamers on a game-to-game basis. Eric, pop that one over in, I don't know if you're part of our premium Discord, but if you pop that in our chat rooms at Sports Ethos and maybe you can put in some of the guys that are on your wire that you've been thinking about, then I can take a little bit of a longer look at it there. I've been following you on Twitter and consistently reading your quick hits on a daily basis. What's the least I can do for you in return? The absolute least is liking and subscribing our YouTube page. The second least, by the way, all of you guys should be liking and subscribing because there's like 20-something likes, and there's way more of you in here than that. Thank you for the update on that, Jeffrey. There's 23 at that point. I think it's a 25 now. The second least thing would be following me on Twitter, because then I can kind of point you in the direction of all the cool stuff we do at Sports Ethos, but you do that already. The third least would be following Ethos Fantasy BK, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with all the free things you can do that are good. But honestly, just helping us spread the word. Because, yes, we are a lot bigger now than we were 2 years ago and a lot bigger than we were 2 years before that. But we're still a smaller guy in the grand, NBC is always going to tower over us. And RotoWire, I think they're a pretty big one, more so for baseball. But, Basketball Monsters bigger than us. If we're going to try to catch up with the big boys, we need all of your help. We'll just sort of keep throwing punches here, doing more shows, doing more tweets, doing more whatever. We want to try to out-hustle everyone because otherwise, how can you grow in a market that is somewhat saturated? So thank you, everybody that has done anything to kind of help us truck along. Which player you have that gives you the most pleasure that you drafted this season? It might be Brook Lopez because I took him at like 135 and he's been by totals almost a first rounder. That's pretty crazy. Markkanen is up there. I have a bunch of Lauri Markkanens. It's got to be Brook Lopez or Lauri Markkanen. And this is super weird for me to say, but the 2 or 3 places where I have Kawhi Leonard and GamesCap Roto, that's actually giving me a ton of pleasure right now because it looked like his season was going to be a train wreck, and he's been a top 3 fantasy play for like 2.5 months now, and he's just dominating. And he's might hit his ADP, which is so insane for a dude that missed the first 2 months, basically. I know that's a weird one because if you're in head-to-head and you drafted him, which, by the way, you shouldn't have because we made very clear on this pod that he's a roto-only play. But really I'm deriving a ton of pleasure out of this Kawhi Leonard stomping on everybody run. My roto teams are just blowing past people once he got healthy because he sort of paired in with whoever that, like I had a team that was Anthony Davis and someone else and Kawhi. And it's like, oh my God, when these teams are healthy, they just... And the beauty of Roto Games Cap is that you don't need your guys to play 75 games. It's really helpful, but you can still win even if your top dude or dudes each miss like 15 to 20 ball games. You can still hang in there if they're good enough. Drop Lou Dort for Tari Eason. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Take the flyer on Eason. I don't think it's going to hit, but it's better than whatever you get out of Dort. Yes, Twitter burgers. I'll try to have those for you guys later on today. I got a busy day over on social media. My plan for today, I got to get the recorded show posted, but I want to do a little bit of a Lakers breakdown now that this Anthony Davis stuff is going on. I want to do a Suns breakdown now that Durant is coming back. Maybe we'll do a little player appreciation threads. I got the players I'm watching tonight, a burger board, And then tonight, if you guys like college baseball, I'm actually calling the USC Trojans baseball game this evening against, I think it's Riverside. So that should be a blast. I hope you guys maybe can join me for that one. I think that's over at their Trojans website, usctrojans.com, probably. I don't know. Check it out. I'm a Cal Bear, and they're letting me do it. Shh, don't tell anybody. Okay, thanks, everybody. We got to get out of here. It's an hour 18 now. Good Lord. These shows are long. Here, let me go big. Twitter. Please do find me on Twitter, anybody that's watching this after the fact. Like and subscribe on your way out. I need a haircut, don't I? You guys couldn't see that when I was a little picture, but now I'm a big picture. Oh, wait a minute. Who's the next player we should be closely monitoring, similar to what we did with Mark Williams in case the team decides to increase their usage? It's got to be Isaiah Jackson. I don't see anybody else pivoting the way the Pacers might. Unless it's the Lakers. You might pick up all these guys, and they might have value the rest of the year if the Lakers pull the plug. Anyway, toodaloo for now. I should take that down, huh? There I am. There's Dan Besper, sportsethos.com. Go get a baseball draft guide. That's the second least. If you want to spend a couple dollars to thank everybody around here, baseball draft guide. All right, later.